Guys, it is October 1st, so you know what that means here on my channel. It is time for
Beetlejuice! Beetlejuice!
Beetlejuice inspired makeup look for you guys tonight. So I thought that we would actually tell some spooky stories, or I tell you guys some spooky stories here on my channel. I have them here on a clipboard because Lord knows I can't memorize all these things, okay guys? So I'm gonna read them to you guys. So I'm very, very excited. You guys know that I love all things that are scary. Scary movies, ghosts, hauntings. I love it all. I've got a little smoothie here with me because I'm trying to get snatched. So if you guys see some blueberries in my teeth, just look past those, okay? We're gonna go ahead and get started. And our first scary story tonight is called Escaping the House of Demons. Ooh. After my first divorce, I was in an all-time low and desperately feeling the need for solitude and introspection. Not having the accessible funds for a getaway, a work friend graciously offered her stone cottage in the woods. Let me just interrupt right here. Nothing good goes down in a cottage. Nothing. Okay, back to the story. So being a 2-hour drive away, it was a welcome retreat, and I thanked her profusely for her opportunity to escape. Before I left, she dropped by to give me the keys. I was surprised to see her quite nervous as she handed them over. I asked her if it was okay, and she turned around before getting in her car, pursing her lips like she had a conflict. I should have told you before, but we haven't been there in about 3 years. You might have to clean up a little bit. I laughed and shook my head. That's no big deal. Don't worry about it. She continued to stare at me. There's something else. She closed the car door and came closer to me. Some say it's haunted. I laughed heartily at the absurd statement. Come on now. You know I don't believe in all that stuff. I'll be fine. I ignored the fact that she was shaking in fear. After a hug, I pondered the fact that my friend was so gullible and surmised that the cottage was possibly just old. I arrived at the property about 5 p.m. on a Saturday night and taken a week off to enjoy my welcome holiday. Driving up the dirt road towards the site, I noticed that it was nestled into the trees, with a storage shed out back. I also noticed the strange fog around the property, which had not been anywhere else on my drive up the mountain. I parked in front of the cottage and admired the stonework, which was built with rocks taken from the nearby river. The wooden door and shutters added old world charm, and the quiet shingles on the roof completed the look. When I unlocked the front door and opened it wide, I was surprised at how sparse the furniture was. I was also surprised that the mess my friend had mentioned was non-existent. So I dragged my bags in and set up. Happy that my grief over my divorce was suspended, I had a makeshift meal and settled in for the night. As I lay in bed, wondering why everything was so quiet, I heard soft footsteps coming from the main room. Then I saw dark shadows appearing under the crack of the door, while the footsteps multiplied and raced faster. I sat up and watched the flickering shadows, like black fire coming from the other room. The footsteps got louder and louder. Getting out of bed, I took a step towards the door, but stopped when it slowly started to open on its own. Ooh. Being able to see the whole room, I was puzzled to hear the footsteps. Then I realized they were from the ceiling. Suddenly, unseen hands, more like claws, shoved me forward. I screamed and stumbled into the main room. I quickly spun around just in time to see the bedroom door slam shut behind me. The demonic laughter froze me to the spot. I lunged at the front door, but was stopped by a large hand grabbing me by the hair. Then I jerked upwards into the air. Screaming in terror and suspended in midair, my feet scrambled to find footing and my scalp burned with pain. I yelled, "Let me go!" as I dangled in the air. I was then thrown viciously across the room. Landing on a chair, I then tumbled over it and felt sharp fingers clawing my flesh. The black, flickering flame turned out to be many demons, which I still can't believe to this day. It's hard for me to call them demons, but I can't think how else to describe them. They also had evil in their eyes. I yelled in rage, "What do you want?" One of the larger demons flew right up in my face and roared loudly. At first I didn't understand the words, as I was distracted by the stench and icy cold blast coming from its mouth. I realized the cold was actually fire that was so hot it had become a searing chill straight from hell. I tried to get up, but was slammed back down by the powerful claws. I screamed, my question again, louder this time. Screaming pure terror, I fell back and twisted myself around, then quickly crawled towards the front door. Many claws grabbed at my ankles, but I ignored the scratches and the tearing of my flesh. I just focused on getting out the door. The demonic laughter bellowed in my ear, and several phrases broke through to my consciousness, like, "Get her! Drink the blood! And swallow the soul! Make her one of us!" By that time, I thought I was going insane. Miraculously, I was able to open the door and soon on my feet, racing towards my car, dressed in nothing but my nightie. Once I got to the car, I realized I didn't have my keys. I fell to the ground and turned to look at the cottage. Sobbing and shaking, I saw a tall, terrifying devil man glaring at me with a vicious snarl on his fiery face. For some reason, he wouldn't step over the threshold, so I crept over to the other side of the car and waited. The next thing I knew, it was early the following morning. I was freezing and my teeth were chattering. I slowly stood up and looked over at the cottage. The door was still open, and the demon wasn't there anymore. Even though I was freezing, I crept up the steps and peered into the cottage. The furniture was smashed and upended. Keeping my eyes on my purse and suitcase, I ran as fast as I could to them, snatched them up, and I ran for the door. Not wanting to have a repeat performance, I surged forward and felt a clump of hair being ripped from my scalp. I ran to the car and threw my bags in, not even bothering to get dressed. I felt a trickle of blood run down my neck. It took ages for me to get the car to start, and I sobbed loudly, even though my anger was building up to a feverish pitch. When the car finally started, I planted my foot on the accelerator and roared away from the old cottage. Reaching around to feel the blood on my neck, I took my hands to the back of my neck and realized there was nothing. My scalp was intact. They didn't get my blood or my soul. Yeah, demons kind of seem to ruin your vacation. It's kind of a scary story, huh? Whew. I probably wouldn't have went to the cottage by myself anyway. I had a friend that lived in a cottage, and it was very, very creepy. So yeah, I probably wouldn't have went by myself. I don't like to go do things by myself either. So our next story is called A Terrifying Plea from Beyond the Grave. Growing up, our family's barn backed up to the penitentiary that was finally closed down and vacant. As a child, I was warned to stay away from that part of the property, and Dad had even built a high wall to block it out. Seeing as our farm was 20 acres with lots to see and do, I wasn't interested, so it wasn't a big deal to me. It was a nightmare I had on a winter's night when I was 14 that actually had sparked my curiosity about the property. I dreamed that a frightening monster chased me down a dark corridor, looking very much like an Egyptian mummy. His muffled moans were creepy, but the eyes, looking out of his palms, of his outstretched hands, was what really terrified me. When I woke up, I felt a strong sense of fascination mixed with horror, that it had something to do with the prison. It had been snowing, and there was at least 5 inches of snow on the ground when I decided to check it out. I crept along the wall and kept going until I found something that it could help me to climb over, and I landed on the prison grounds. The atmosphere was so different, and it seemed like another dimension, or at least a parallel world. As I walked across the field, which soon stretched into an asphalt compound, I saw the tall, rusted wire fencing. It didn't take me long to find a hole in the fence, so I stepped through and made my way into the back of the building. I had to try several doors before I found one that was unlocked, but I hesitated, as thus the fear was growing. The handle was freezing, but I attributed it to the fact that the temperature was single digits and it was snowing. After a few pulls, I was able to wrench it open. I looked inside, and the dark interior and littered floors. I took a few careful steps and was struck by a painting hanging off the wall and ceiling strips trailing on the floor. There were several upturned tables and chairs here and there as I wandered through the huge building. Suddenly, I heard the sound of metal doors clanging and slamming shut, and I realized that I had been stupid to come here. I heard a moaning that was creepy and familiar. I didn't start running until I heard a fast shuffling across the floor. Whew. When I turned around, there was nothing. But I turned back and continued running, just in case. Then the moaning got louder, and several doors started to open and slam shut in the distance, so I bolted for the door. I found that it was stuck, and I wasn't even sure if this was the door I used to get in the building, so I ran to find another one. I could barely breathe due to the rising panic, and I screamed when I heard a shuffling behind me getting closer and closer. Spinning around to see what it was, I was angry to see nothing there. Nothing. So I yelled, "Who's there? Who are you?" I was even angrier when the building suddenly grew silent. So silent that it nearly hurt my young ears. Turning around and stomping off, I screamed again when I saw a large piece of wallpaper unfurl from the floor. Dried pieces of paint began to drop from the ceiling all around me. It was so dark that I was now running blindly. I didn't see the chair as I stumbled over it and hit my head on the floor. It was a while before I sat up. I heard the moaning getting louder and louder, while the shuffling began to go slow. Then I saw a bandaged foot. They were right in front of me. When I looked up, I realized I was looking at the man from my nightmare. Trying desperately to scramble backwards, I felt the chair against my back and jammed into the wall behind me. The monster moved forward as I tried to get away, but I didn't want to stand up in case it grabbed me. Panting for breath, I tried to roll left and right in order to try to crawl to a position where I could get up and run. The problem was, everywhere I tried to go, the monster stepped in the way, moaning louder and waving his hands. I could see the eyes on his palms, blinking at me as they waved past my face. I began to cry helplessly and hopelessly. He fell to his knees in front of me, reached his hands out, and held his palms up so the eyes were close to my face. I saw his dark mouth moving under the bandages, opening up and moaning loudly as his palm clasped my face. I was able to see the monster's reality and was shocked to find myself watching his own life flashing in my mind. There was a young man who was mute and considered by the community as mentally handicapped and dangerous. He was blamed for a crime that he didn't commit and was incarcerated, often vilified and tortured by the wardens. The man was kept in solitary confinement for long stretches at a time, and the treatment made him lose his mind. Even though he was mute, he was incredibly intelligent, but the madness soon corrupted him and made him go insane. After decades of torture and neglect, he finally succumbed to exposure when he was wrapped up and left for dead. The cruel wardens were assisted by some of the inmates, who bound him in bed sheets and threw him down the well. I remembered seeing a well as I'd crossed the field before I got to the compound, but then saw another flash. I could see the man trying to unravel the sheets, and he stretched them in the process while trying to climb out. His thoughts then penetrated my brain, telling me, "Feel what I see. See what I feel. Tell them I'm good. Tell them I'm good." I screamed, "Who are you?" as I cried, for him as well as myself. Then he told me, "I don't remember." I asked, "How can I tell them if I don't know who you are?" I heard moaning and sobbing as the shuffling began. I was now standing up next to the chair, and I saw him shuffling away from me, still moaning and crying. I yelled, "Please tell me, I can help you." Then he disappeared. I jumped when a nearby door suddenly opened. It took a while for me to decide to leave, as I wondered if I should go and try to find him, but then thought, I might as well just go ahead and go. I quickly got out of there and made my way home. Then I tried to conduct research via many avenues with no results. When I told my parents, they said it was nothing but a dream and then grounded me for a month. Alright guys, so that's just a few scary stories that I thought was very, very interesting. I love scary stories. If you've been watching my channel for a while, there's plenty of ghost stories on here. There's actually some stories about our own house. We've had really weird things happen here. If you have not heard the stories, I suggest that you go down and watch some of the videos. You'll probably find them very, very interesting. We have a lot of things that go bump in the night here. But thank you guys again for tuning into my channel. I hope you enjoyed the stories, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.